Hi, this is Mike from Above Grade Level, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the SAT test, and in particular about writing or writing/grammar. It's all in that writing section of the test, and so we're going to just jump right in. Some of the high-level strategies that you're going to want to employ in this area is to leave out punctuation unless you identify a situation that requires it. Also, you'll never be asked to choose between interchangeable punctuation marks. If two answers are serving the same function, they both will be wrong. Also, use the process of elimination to eliminate 1, 2, and hopefully 3 of the incorrect answers so that you can get to the right answer. And then some important rules: surround non-essential phrases with commas. So if there's a clause in there that's not necessary, we want to set that with commas. But we do use commas to separate lists, items in a list. We also do not use commas between two independent clauses. Semicolons will be used in that case. Colons come after a complete sentence and set up a list or explanation. So some comma rules. So let's start with people who sleep well are more alert. People, if you take out the clause, who sleep well, people are more alert. That does not tell you anything, so it's not a complete thought. So it needs to be the whole thing. People who sleep well are more alert. So we would say who sleep well is essential, and that means that you would not put commas around that clause. So it would just be no punctuation except for the period at the end. Another example, though it's different, is Nate, who works as a software engineer, majored in computer science. If you take out who worked as a software engineer, Nate majored in computer science. That is a complete thought. It does not need to have the extra clause in there that talks about him being a software engineer. So in that case, after Nate, we would put a comma before the word who, and then after software engineer, at engineer, we'd put a comma, and so that would make that one correct. You need to have both commas. If you don't have both, it's not the right answer, okay? So let's move on. Use commas after introductory phrases or clauses. Here's an example. Although I went to Hawaii for Joe's wedding, that is not a dependent clause. That leaves you hanging, right? We need a comma. I have to work. Okay. Another one, during spring break, my days will consist of eating, working out, and sleeping. So that's a list of items, and you would put a comma after the first one and the second one. Then you always have the word and then the last one. So that's separating a list. Another one is you don't use commas to separate complete thoughts. So Dorothy failed her test, comma, but it was extremely difficult. That's not correct, because Dorothy failed her test. That's a complete thought. It was extremely difficult. That is a complete thought. So in that case, it would not be a comma, but you would need to use a semicolon, and we'll talk about that. You also do not use a comma between an adjective and a noun. So Trista bought a blue comma truck. No, you would say Trista bought a blue truck. So let's go to the colon rules. Colons must come after a complete sentence. So it has to be a complete sentence, then something descriptive after that when you'd use a colon. So here's a good example. Jasmine brought everything she needed for the exam, colon, pencils, comma, a backpack, comma, and a calculator. That is correct, okay? Next, we'll do semicolons. That's where you separate two complete thoughts. So Jesse is my friend, semicolon, I invited him to my party. Each one of those phrases could be an independent sentence on its own. So that's where we use a semicolon and no conjunction. So there's more grammar rules. Make sure the subject and the verb agree in number. Jack and Jill run down the street. Jack and Jill is a plural verb, and the subject run is a plural verb. So that's correct. Okay? Collective nouns are singular. The jury is convinced that John is guilty. So the jury is a singular, even though it's a collective group of people that make up the jury is singular. So make sure you use is and not are in that case. Prepositional phrases do not make a subject singular or plural. So remember that. And also pronouns must be clear in reference and number. So make sure that when you have a pronoun, a he, she, or it, that there is a person that refers back to, or else it's incorrect. We're going to go on to some more that we need to make sure that we're on top of. There, and there. So there's one word there is similar to here, and that's T-H-E-R-E. there's a possessive there, T-H-E-I-R, and then there's a there, T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E, which means they are. So make sure you know those, because you will be asked those questions and they'll have those different answers, and you need to know the right one. Also, it's and its. So it can be its, I-T apostrophe S, which is again a contraction, it is, and it's meaning possessive. So it's very similar to the theirs, but you need to make sure you know which one it is, because you will get those questions. So we hope that this has helped you today in navigating the writing, and they call it writing and language, or the writing and grammar section of the SAT test. It is a tough area, but you can do well on it just by knowing some of these simple rules and being able to identify them on the questions. Thank you.